what's your opinion around the sort of great men of history in the modern world now? Is that something that can still exist, or are the bureaucracies and the red tape and the complexity?
This bold take on whether great men still shape history will leave you thinking. Check this video out.
It's even more important now. Of course, come on, it's even more important now. Here's the thing. This is a dialectic. Again, if you're gonna go back, you wanted another. The dialectic is there's two things that are true. We have this like inexorably powerful system that pushes history and pushes things in certain directions. And it's really hard to overcome the system. You can't just be a great man and just walk up to the system and like slice it all in half. That's not how it works. You're not just like, I exist outside of history. No, the way great men work of history is you understand the system deeply, and the way, Peter Thiel I was talking to earlier today talked about it, is you see there's this big wave coming and you get in front of the wave and you surf it and you use it to cut through and fix things, and you use it to build things, and you use it to do things because you're working with the system in the direction of it. But then like fundamentally breaking through the bureaucracy, breaking through this other area, inspiring people with a better solution. So it is dialectic, where it is a really hard system to change. And there are certain things you can't change, but then you desperately need the great men who are bold and who do study it and who do like change things and make things possible. And thank God we have Elon Musk and SpaceX. It's just one example. Like America would be screwed from a defense perspective and from other perspectives. Oh yeah.
Why?
I mean, space is just absolutely critical to everything we're doing, and knowing what's going on in the world and projecting power and just, it's just, I make certain things you can't talk about with space warfare, but you can imagine it's just critical. We now dominate that globally. And there's no way we'd be way behind. We'd have nothing.
This explanation of the dialectic is spot on. Change doesn't come from brute force, but from those who study systems deeply and act with precision. That's where Palantir thrives, in the shadows of complexity, turning bureaucracy into leverage. It's not anti-establishment, it's system smart. Like Musk with rockets, Palantir with data has moved us from lagging to leading.
Have you got any idea of China's space capability?
They're trying really hard. Have you seen those videos where they try to do the thing where they landed? They haven't figured it out yet, but they're trying. I mean,
they tried to do the chopstick?
I didn't try the chopstick that I saw, but they definitely try to land, because the smaller ones are self-landing without the chopstick. The chopstick's for the really heavy, big one. Right. So they're still back. They haven't got Falcon figured out yet, but they're trying. Then the biggest Starship, they're not even close. But listen, I mean, the Chinese are really good at copying stuff. It's actually extraordinary he's that far ahead of them. I mean, there's some really smart people there. So it's just the fact that we're this far ahead. That's just an amazing fact.
It's when you think about intellectual property, and this was one of the things that Trump's been bringing up with regards to tariffs, right? That it's not just the difficulty in getting products there, it's the replication and the copying of our products over there, which means we don't even need to ship them. Like
every time you do something, they're so fast at copying. It's actually amazing how good they are at
Have you got any idea what that system is? What it is that they're doing? They got some team of crack.
I think it's the culture. I think it's the culture of their education system to take something and to learn it and to regurgitate it. It tends to be how they teach there. So I think there's something about their smartest people being forced to do that, and then they take things, and it's really funny because they copy and they iterate on it, and they do steal. I mean, I'm not gonna say which company, but one of our companies was like training OpenAI and Anthropic on a certain very specific area where they'd measure them every week, and get feedback and get it ahead, and they got like certain scores, and it really was OpenAI they were doing it the most with, and they would score OpenAI, and they got to the point where it's really good at what they needed. And then DeepSeek came out. This is when China had their own AI that they trained. And they said, oh, it's interesting.
What's striking here is not just China's speed at copying, but America's ability to innovate beyond reach. Musk is sprinting where others are still trying to stand, and that lead matters deeply, especially in space and AI. The real edge isn't hardware, it's vision, execution, and the software that guides it. That's why Palantir's platforms are so critical. They make sure the lead isn't just held, but extended.
Let's measure it. And they measured it in the 6 different areas. And it was exactly the same scores as OpenAI from 4 months ago. And this is something they like trained and iterated on to get there. So it's clear they just exfiltrated it. Which is what China's good at.
The difficulty that you must face at holding on to commercial patents, at not letting people get a hold of your inventions, that's one thing. But when it comes to, this is kind of the technology that keeps us safe from a national security, or one of the key technologies that keeps us safe from a national security perspective, the level of security that you must be talking about when it comes to stuff like SpaceX, when it comes to Raptor engines, when it comes to Falcon 9 heavy rocket stability, all of the belly flop maneuver, all of this shit, that must be locked down as hard as you can get. People talk about Area 51 and being able to sort of keep secret. And you go, I don't really know if the Chinese would be that bothered about using aliens against us, but they'd fucking sure as hell love one of those rockets that can get stuff into space cheap.
It's really funny at Palantir, not funny, but serious too, obviously, because we're running these global information systems for 40 countries and tracking all of these things. And I remember when I was still there a long time ago, there was a PhD student who was Chinese, who'd been friends with some of the people at our company, and they caught him with like in the server room, like with like inserting and stealing data, and he broke down crying, and he said, I have family in China. I didn't want to have to do this, but I'm worried for them. They kind of made me, and this was quite a
It
long
was
time
fully
ago.
infiltrated.
And well, in that case, like they didn't get it out, and then he left the country right away, and so and he went back to his family, and like it is interesting at that point on, you had to be really careful hiring people with family in China to work in any of the government sensitive areas, of course, because they could just use the family against them. Ironically, when Peter Thiel then spoke out at the RNC for Trump in like 2016, Obama's Labor Department right away sued Palantir for not hiring enough Asians.
The heartbreaking part is that this isn't just about corporate theft. It's about weaponizing fear and loyalty to extract national secrets. The reality that someone can be coerced through their own family highlights how high the stakes are. Palantir understood early that security isn't just technical, it's human, geopolitical, and strategic. That's why trust and alignment with democratic values aren't just branding, they're operational imperatives.
We had 25% Asians, but it wasn't enough. Which is just funny though, because we couldn't hire people who were born in China, and so of course they sued us for that. But and then of course DoD agreed with us, but Labor Department disagreed with us. The government doesn't always agree with itself.
Yeah, but have a chat between yourselves, guys. Work out
Yeah,
who's going to
please.
sue us or not, and then come back. Well, isn't there all of these rumors? Obviously, this I think will have stopped now that the southern border has been tightened up significantly by the sounds of things. But wasn't there a lot of sort of military-age Chinese men coming across the southern border?
I think what that was, I'll tell you what I think that was. And this is speculation, but I've talked to a bunch of people. There actually were a lot of kind of Chinese mafia operating in Shenzhen, which is like a area that had a lot of this historically, and it's like very powerful groups. And Xi Jinping was doing a really big crackdown in China, and some of his crackdown was on stuff that was kind of messed up. Like I've had friends caught up in it who disappeared and died in the tech world, where I don't think we're bad guys. I think they just didn't agree with CCP, but some of it was cracked down on actual criminal elements. I think a lot of those criminals fled and are doing criminal activities now in the US and across the border because they weren't safe in China anymore, so they came here.
Oh, right. Okay. Imagine that. Imagine being the Chinese government and thinking, fantastic, we've actually finally got a ton of military age men. Oh, God, they're criminal. They're selling fentanyl. What use is that? We need you to steal the secrets of Palantir.
We don't want these people in our country, and I think some of them probably came here even without China knowing it, but I'm sure they're smart enough to take advantage of it and use them too. So it's very scary.
This entire exchange underscores the chaos of asymmetric threats, where criminal syndicates, espionage, and bureaucracy collide. Palantir's role becomes even more vital in moments like these, cutting through speculation with actionable insight. You don't need to fear every rumor, but you do need to prepare for every pattern. And in the end, preparation is what separates stability from catastrophe.
I met, I think, the main guy who designed the belly flop maneuver for SpaceX.
I love it.
At Bill Perkins' house last year during the Eclipse party. And I was just listening. It's similar to your friend that was giving the soliloquy about artificial education. And he was just explaining. It was such a fucking inspiring story that I think he'd been at a very big space company previously and had moved to SpaceX. And he basically bet his entire career on this belly flop maneuver. The fact that if you have any vehicle coming in from space, you want it to try and accumulate as much air friction as possible. And if you've got a tube, there's not much air friction to play with in the first place. So you try and put it parallel to the ground, you bring it down, and then at the very last minute, you swing it. And he explained, he said, dude, this was as I'm watching this thing happening, I'm basically watching my own career and legacy sort of slowly rotate by 90 degrees to see if it's going to work. But I just loved it. I thought it was so cool. And it really sort of spoke to me about we spoke about fearlessness, sort of courage earlier on. It's a very unique kind of fearlessness, to sort of back yourself to be innovative. But I just thought it was such a cool story. I loved hearing it.
There's something really special about having a crazy idea about something that should work, how the world should work, and then like working with lots of other smart people, convincing them of it, and then like building and iterating towards it. It's just I love that. It's one of my favorite things. I'm doing a bunch of it right now with a bunch of new things, and it's just so fun when you have these big bold ideas. They don't always work, but with enough smart people around you to iterate on them, a lot of times they do.
Space. Looking at that, I'm fascinated by the world of astropolitics now.
This story hits at the core of innovation, committing to something the world says is impossible and pulling it off with relentless iteration. That's the culture both SpaceX and Palantir thrive in. High risk, high impact thinking paired with elite execution. It's a different breed of fearlessness, one that's not reckless, but radically focused. Because the future isn't built by consensus, it's built by conviction.
So the politics of space, who gets to own and refine things that are going past us, areas on the moon, bits of territory, whether it's geosync above particular countries. Is this something that you've looked into much? I think
Yeah,
it's so
no, the
interesting.
ownership thing, it's fascinating. This is a lot like, I think you can kind of go back and study like the 16th, 17th, 18th centuries where there's just like infinite room and infinite space. And you know, for the New World and all these places you can get, and you can fight over some big land bodies, of course, that people did, but there's just so much out there that it's much more like once you can start using it in a way that's actually helpful and you're using it for something useful, it kind of becomes yours. And there's so much out there that we're not gonna like run into scarcity for a long time. So the way we think of it on Earth is probably like today is probably the wrong model because we have this like bias where there's a certain amount of land and a certain amount of resources and it's scarce. And do I own it or do you own it? And there's just so much stuff up there and so much room up there that that's not really the problem for now. Like we could every country could have their own moon base, and like be like doing whatever we want to be doing on the moon, and then we're not going to like run out of room on the moon for now, right? And then same thing with like there's millions of asteroids, right? So I'm not too concerned about that. I think the scarier thing is you probably don't want wars in space, right? At all, because it will screw up all the global satellite stuff we do, which is, I don't know about you, but Starlink's pretty useful for me. It's pretty bad. And B, it's just like, there's lots of things where if you can get good at like doing things in space and then throwing things at the planet, that's really scary. And you screw a lot of things up. So I hope I hope that's not something we get.
Well, there's also there's a book called Seven Eves by Neil Stephenson. In the first line, the moon explodes. So spoiler alert: the moon explodes in the first line, and they've got say 500 days to get as many citizens off Earth and to the ISS, and they basically build out this new habitat at the ISS. And they say there's going to be a hard rain as the moon breaks out from the seven eves, the seven pieces that it's in, and it's going to basically shower down on Earth.
This is the dawn of a new kind of frontier, not one of conquest, but of capability. The moon, the asteroids, Lagrange points, there's vast abundance, but also immense risk. The danger isn't about running out of space, it's about letting old-world rivalries poison a new domain. Our greatest challenge might not be technical, it might be diplomatic restraint in a boundless theater.
Everything's going to be fucked for about 5,000 years, and then after a while, if we can survive it, we'll come back down and we'll see how all of this stuff goes.
Yikes.
And they're talking about when you're in, I can't remember what the particular altitude is, if it's even correct to call it altitude when you get to something like the ISS or distance from Earth, that lots and lots of the satellites sort of sit at this particular distance away. And it only takes, there's quite a bit of junk up there, but that's kind of well positioned. It doesn't take much to cause a pretty negative chain reaction of this thing broke, which broke this thing, and before you know it, ding, 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 and entire sort of swaths of real estate and of useful technology that's up there can all be damaged. So yeah, I think anything that involves fucking around in those areas, it seems like
we don't want that. There's a funny technology I saw the other day. There was like this robot to like clean up space junk that people are working on. Of course, it's a Japanese, which I love. This is like what you expect them to do. Of course, they're the cleanest country. And
it's a dog. It's a miniature dog as well, shaped like a miniature dog. Yeah.
No, it's great. But I mean, in theory, there's things like that. Hopefully, we could do. But it's you don't want a war up there.
The moon explodes. We've got 500 days to build space shelters. Sounds like a movie? It's actually the start of Seven Eves. But here's the thing. The ISS orbit is already a junkyard. One crash up there, a cascade that wipes out satellites, GPS, and internet. What's the solution? A robot dog that cleans space. Only Japan could give us tech and anime vibes in one shot, but we might need more than a cute bot to fix this mess.